My Big Fat Diet Book by Richard Mason. Chapter 6. Change, Grief, Hypnosis. 2004 was a similar year to 2003. I remained in some sort of control about what I ate and when I ate it. I still did lots of exercise and did eat quite healthily, but there was lots of alcohol and binge nights. It became like being on a treadmill whilst juggling, if you can imagine that. I was up against too much at once, and I knew I was going to slip soon and fall. Early 2004, I seemed to be treading water with my weight. I could still fit in some of my nice skinny clothes, but some were very tight, and I was buying the next size up. 34, 36 waist trousers and jeans, and medium shirts instead of small. For some stupid reason, I thought to myself, I want to become a barber. God knows why. It's long hours, stood up on your feet all day, working with the general public up close. And I couldn't just do a barbering course, I had to do a hairdressing course to get into barbering. Ladies and gents combined. I started hairdressing college in the autumn of 2004. I wore a slim-fitting shirt to the interview and my favourite jeans. They were not tight, but just a bit tighter than normal. By the time I'd been at college a few months, I'd gone up a little bit in clothes sizes as well. I think I'd put the best part of a stone on. Some people noticed and told me, "Oh, you look better with a bit of weight on you." This to me was dreadful, and I hated it. When people said this, even though it was just a stone, it felt like 10. I knew I was out of control, and I was going to get big. I just knew it. College was near this lovely little shop that sold crisps and drinks and stuff like that. Sometimes I bought low-fat crisps, but some days I didn't. They had all these gorgeous different kinds of soups you could buy and hot chocolate drinks that we all used to buy at break times. Well, everyone else was, so why couldn't I? People around me said I looked fine. I was 26 years old and I was a sort of normal build, but I felt huge and very unhappy with my weight compared to what I was. In 2004, I finished working with a certain producer friend. It was an amicable parting of ways, after a few musical differences. So musically I was back to square one. No one to write with and no kind of management, no kind of record company. The online record company I'd worked with back in 2002 had closed. And by summer of 2004 I just drew a line under ever making music again and said to myself, if anything is going to happen, then it happens. I went to a family wedding in late 2004. Even though I was probably only around 13.5 stone, something like that, I felt uncomfortable. I felt huge and was very paranoid the whole day that someone would say something to me that I'd put on weight. I remember taking my jacket off and feeling a bit self-conscious about my body. There was nothing on me really, I just felt awkward. In late 2004, early 2005, I'd let things slip a fair bit, but the control over my diet became less, much less. If friends wanted to go out for a meal and a few drinks, I went with them. If I fancied something nice for tea, I had it no matter what the fat content was. I didn't let slip totally. There was still some kind of control, some exercise. But by spring 2005, I was putting on weight, majorly in my eyes. Like the dozens of times before, you feel sort of angry about putting on weight. There is this loss of control about your whole life and situation that you're in. My father became seriously, terminally ill around this time, and other things that was happening in my life affected me. Things became very difficult at home. When one of your family members becomes ill, your whole life is turned upside down. My father was diagnosed with terminal cancer, one of the worst things I've ever been told in my life. We all struggled to take it in and cope, but we were all there for each other as much as we could. My mum had her close work friends, my sisters had all their husbands. What did I have? Food and alcohol. That's what I had. As 2005 went on, I started to drink a lot more and eat a lot more. The old foods, crisps, chips, biscuits, anything I wanted. My father was dying and I felt helpless, totally helpless. Watching my father slowly getting worse with his health over the summer of 2005 made me think, well, life's too short not to have a bag of chips, have a bag of crisps, have a few biscuits, and it's too short to be exercising like mad. So as the year went on, I gave less and less thought and care to my body and life in general. Grief is a strange thing. I have had people in my family and friends pass away and have grief for them in the normal way, if there is a normal way. But in 2005, whilst my dad was terminally ill, I felt I was grieving all the time that he was actually ill. Myself and my mum were the ones who were with him day in, day out, seeing his very fast decline in health and in himself. He had gone from this giant of a man to this very thin, childlike figure that my mum had to feed and wash and help get dressed. I once came in and popped my head around the living room door one day to see if he was okay. He was just sat in the chair watching some random TV program. He had these kind of blood spots on the top of his head, dried blood spots. I told my mum and she said it was the cancer on his brain. I was lost for words and I felt helpless to help him at all. A couple of evenings later, a friend texted and said, "Do you want to come out with us for a birthday meal?" It was their birthday. I was reluctant to go, but Mum said, "Go, get yourself out. You're stuck in here all the time." Anyway, I went. I drove over to my friend's, an hour or so away. Got a shower before we went out. I'd done this a few times. Drove over, had a shower, and stayed in the spare room after an evening out. I had a shower and got dressed in the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror and I just thought to myself about how ill my father was back home. And I just burst into tears and I was sobbing for about 10-15 minutes. My friends were banging on the bathroom door. "Are you okay, Rich? Are you okay?" I opened the door after I'd managed to dry my eyes and make myself look a bit more presentable. They had guessed I was upset. I think it was seeing my dad that helpless the other day, just sat there with this awful disease affecting him, that had hit me so hard. As I said, I felt like I was grieving all the time throughout my father's illness. My father passed away in late 2005, and by then I'd put a stone or so on. No one really noticed. I still wore trendy clothes and still fitted in a lot of my nice clothes, but had gone up a couple of waist sizes in jeans. I went shopping for a suit for my father's funeral. I tried on some 36 waist trousers and they wouldn't fasten. I had to get 38, and they were just okay. I hadn't been 38 waist for a long time. Well, not since Alton Towers days. Do you remember? Too many pies. I bought the suit and it was a real eye-opener. It made me think about what was happening. But I wasn't that bothered. I wasn't huge. I was just kind of chubby. But still people didn't quite notice yet. How could they not? I did. Whenever I looked in the mirror, I thought, you're becoming that different person again. By the time of my father's funeral, I was in quite a bad place, but managed to put a brave front on for the day. In my new suit, looking like one of Westlife, my brother-in-law told me. I managed to get through the funeral and be there for my family. 2 weeks later, I went on a short holiday with my mum to Blackpool. While I was there, I drank most nights. In fact, I drank all week. Every night I ate plenty, and I was a bit off the rails, to be honest. Not majorly. I didn't get into any trouble or fights or anything like that. I just got drunk most nights. I remember sat in a bar stuffing my face on peanuts and downing pints of cider, and a friend from college texted to see how I was getting on. It was really nice to hear from her, and I told her I was sat in a pub downing pints of cider. I didn't mention the peanuts. She said to me, "Drink won't sort out any of your problems, Rich." And I knew she was right, but I just felt like drinking at the time. Whilst in Blackpool, I bought some new jeans, size 38 waist, from a really nice trendy shop. They were quite tight though. I didn't wear them on the holiday, or when I got home, as they soon became even tighter. After my father had died, time went so fast. Days, weeks, months just flew by so quickly. It all became a blur. Life became a blur, and I wasn't in control of it anymore. Not at all. By early 2006, I'd put a bit more weight on through drinking and eating. By late 2006, I was 40 waist and around 15.5 stone, maybe 16. I didn't make a point of weighing myself that often. I don't know why, it all happened so fast. The only way I can describe the months after losing someone close is like being on a fairground ride that is out of control. In late 2006, I started to record an album on my own. I'd bought this old PC and installed a music producing software on it, and recorded some cover versions of songs that I used to like. Plus, I produced a couple of tracks of my own. It was finished by Christmas, and that year I gave it out to family and friends in memory of my dad. The album was called Star. I've recorded a couple of tracks since then, but they were the last songs I've recorded to this point. Hypnosis, first session. 6 months or so after my father had died, and I wasn't coping very well. All this on top of a really poor diet. A friend of mine knew a lady who was a hypnotherapist and counsellor. The friend even called her for me and arranged this first meeting. It was a warm spring, early summer evening of autumn 2006, and I met my friend. Then we drove to the office where this lady worked. I was feeling very nervous. We got there at the office, and it was in a block of office units in part of a busy town. I'd never been to this area of town before. It looked quite rough, to be honest. The car park was even rough and ready with gravel and potholes. I didn't have a good feeling about it, but once inside the building and I met the lady, she was lovely. She was quite a large lady. That's what first struck me, really. I know it's awful to say, but how was this big woman going to help me lose weight? That's all I could think. Weight loss hypnosis. I suppose I was there as I needed some counselling as well as weight loss. And if I could get help from both, whether it was the hypnotherapy for losing weight or counselling to help deal with the grief, it was going to be a bonus. The friend went outside and I sat and talked to the lady. I told her I was a stone or so heavier than I wanted to be. I told her I felt like my weight was out of control and that I was just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The meeting started with paperwork and speaking to her about how I felt in life in general and everything that had been going on around me, my father's death and other things. She asked lots of questions and took lots of notes. She didn't ask too many questions, they never do. I've done some counselling courses before, and you try to get people to open up with open-ended questions and try and find out how they are feeling and the mental state that they are in. After an hour's chat with this lovely but large lady, she said she thought I was ideal for hypnotherapy and she would write a script for the first session, and then I would come back and be hypnotized into releasing old food habits and I would lose weight gradually and safely. The lady was lovely and I really thought it could work. 1 week or so later, I went back for the first session, or the second session. I was on my own. I sat in the old yellow but comfy recliner chair, and she lifted the recliner up a bit by hand. I think the chair was broken. It didn't matter. She was lovely and it was comfy. I trusted this lady totally. I lay back in the chair, and she starts to take me into hypnosis. This is the first time I'd ever had anything like this done, so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't go to sleep, and I didn't feel any different, to be honest, but I did feel relaxed. She read through her script of telling me not to overeat and to eat healthier things and to take things slower. It did seem to sink in a little bit. The session lasted about 45 minutes. The hypnosis bit lasted about 30 minutes, and by the end of the session, I did feel a bit brighter. I think it cost me about £30. The lady gave me a card and said, "Any questions? Just call me." I left the office and made my way home. The drive home was amazing. I felt really confident and happier than I had been in a long time. I remember it being such a lovely sunny evening. I had the windows down and the music on full blast singing along. And I thought to myself, this is a new start for me. And for a few days I did feel better. But unfortunately, it didn't last long. I was back into my old binging habits and drinking habits, and I knew it hadn't worked, or it had not worked as much as I wanted. And the weight crept back on, bit by bit, and I was back to square one. What do I do now? I thought. Just dig in and carry on like Dad said, and that's what I did. 2006 flew by. We sold houses and moved to a new one. Everything seemed to happen so quick. I've never liked things happening quick, out of control. Before I knew it, it was 2007. A new year, a new start, a new home, plus a birthday. What did 2007 have in store for me? Would I lose the weight? After a couple of months' break from college for obvious family reasons, I went back in early 2007. I went back into a different class though, but with some of the students from the old class. One of the ladies came up to me and says, "Oh, you've changed." She didn't have to say much more. I knew what she meant. She may as well have just said, "Ooh, you've got fat." This was a big reality check for me, but it did change nothing at all. It happened a few more times after that, and I really couldn't stand the thought of running into people that I hadn't seen for ages in case they said to me, "You've changed." Those words cut through me like a knife. By mid-2007, I'd finished college and I started regular binges. All this with no exercise and as much alcohol as you could throw in. The weight flew on. My health was poor and I felt ill all the time. Kidney stone pain, stomach pains, I felt like crap. I was out of control and it was only going to get worse. In 2007, I formed a theatre group with a friend who I knew at the time, and we started rehearsing for a show that I'd written called Lost in the 80s. I wrote it about 10 years or so before. We met up for rehearsals at a local pub, which is now sadly closed but still standing. We would meet every Thursday evening and practice the play. 9 times out of 10 I would feel poorly because of the crap food I'd eaten during the day, and it spoiled something that could have been quite good. We also took quite a few publicity pictures for it. I look so fat and bloated in these pictures. Looking back on them, I don't even recognize myself in them. I was so fat and bloated, a huge shadow of what I used to be. But nothing seemed to snap me out of it. I got through the production, and we staged the play. I acted my way through it, not just through the play, but my life around me at the time. I've never been good at acting, probably because I'm too busy pretending to act my way through everything else. End of chapter 6.